Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by IDS, an award-winning digital marketing agency that delivers integrated marketing solutions for franchisors, franchisees, and franchise development teams. Learn why over 75 brands depend on IDS's team of dedicated marketers and client service professionals to deliver a strong ROI on their marketing investment. Go to idsfranchisemarketing.com for a complimentary digital audit and consultation.
Welcome to another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio. I'm your host, Rob Ganley, and we're going to peel back the layers of the franchising world today. We're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of business ownership, marketing, and technology. We do that every time, but I like it differently every time. Anyway, I have a great guest with me today. His name is Erik Ivey. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Voodoo Franchise Group. And we're going to dive into what that is for anyone who isn't from Colorado or nearby, because I know what this is all about, but it's going to be an exciting conversation. Erik, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, brother. How you doing?
It's good to be here. Yeah, it's great to talk to you, and I'm glad to dive in. As I said, am familiar with a Voodoo brewing location here in Colorado Springs. So I know a little bit about it from the outside. Looks awesome. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's talk about franchising. But first, tell me a little bit about how you wound up COO. I know it's a fairly new development for you. You've got an extensive history of franchising and working with brands in your past. So tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
Yeah, I've been in the restaurant business for 25 plus years. Actually, we're just going to call it 25 years. It could be 30, could be 40. I don't even know at this point, but worked with a lot of different big brands from Chipotle, Noodles and Company, Plancheros, Yum Brands, Quiznos back in the day. I've owned and operated my own restaurants before. And so I've had my big toe in the mix of everything for kind of a long time. And, last year around this time, one thing you got to know about restaurants is it's a small world, and building relationships, building connections. I mean, it just kind of spreads. So I had a recruiter give me a call and tell me about this fantastic opportunity with a brand that is just on a really, really good path. And so anyway, long story short, met with the board, the CEO, the team there, and absolutely first fell in love with the team and the people. And then I tried beer, and that just kind of sealed the deal for me. So those guys chose me, brought me on, and here I am.
And that says a lot for anyone who's not zeroing in the way I like to. I'm a little geeky when I think about things about franchising. But I think if a guy like you who's worked with, you just named off a list, and there was some in there that multiple kinds of restaurants, even like many restaurants. And you look at a model like this, for you to want to be part of it is saying something, right? You see something across the board, not just the people, but the model and the industry, the product, all those things. And that's what you got to do in this business if you're going to jump in and help grow it. And I know that's where you're coming from, and that's what we all want to do. We believe in this industry. I know I do. And it's a collection of brands. And it's funny you say that about the restaurant industry. So is the franchise. It's very small, right? So franchise restaurant and then just restaurant. I mean, it's super big, but not really when you really get into it, right? You start to really see it. But anyway, I hear you there. So tell me a little bit about, I've read a little bit, we talked a little bit beforehand about your person first, kind of approach to the way you've been world of doing it yourself, running businesses, building teams, being a part of franchise brands, learning from all these different angles. But person first approach, tell me how you think about that, how that influences you as the COO, and where you're going to kind of take that.
Yeah, it really brings me back to like the first restaurant that I ever owned was up in Longmont, Colorado. It was the East Coast Coffee and Deli shop, right on Main Street. And I was young. I was 26 years old. And at 26 years old, you think you know everything. I'm fresh out of like my undergrad studies, and I just moved to Colorado, and I had got myself into a job in the restaurant business, and at that age, you're like, man, I know everything, and I'm going to be the greatest, and I'm going to be I'm going to be the CEO of my own company, and then you fail, and and I failed. I failed miserably. And, I walked away from that going, you know what? I think the most important thing that I could have done better was take care of my people. And I had been so business oriented, I financially savvy. Like I thought about numbers all the time, and I didn't really think about the people. So you fast forward, took some other jobs with, some of the restaurant companies around the Denver area. I ended up owning another different concept, and took a very, very different approach. And I said, you know what, this time around, it's all about the people. And that's really how I live my life personally. And I work in this world that, the restaurant industry. The number one thing that you can do is take care of your people. And so I attribute where I am, not because of the position I hold or what I've been able to do in my past. I really think that I've been able to get to where I'm at because I put people as the top of everything that we do. And it reminds me of a quote from David Novak that I learned a long time ago. And that quote's, "We'll be rewarded based on how effective we are at making the people around us better." And if we just live our lives through that very, very simple philosophy, and create a system and and tools and the process systems and tools for a company, and we wrap that around people, we can be successful in anything that we do.
And it's no secret, or it's no, I guess, coincidence that everything you just said is what franchising really is, right? Not saying everybody gets that right. Certainly not every individual, but a culture, most brands, this is what they want to focus on, right? Because if you get that right, then the other things do take care of themselves. People are people. And when they believe in you and they believe in your brand and they believe in how you do things, you treat them well and you remind them that you appreciate everything they're doing. Because honestly, without them, how would you, right? Like anyone who's done it long enough. And it's amazing what people will do when they believe in things. And I think it's not by mistake in the franchise industry that you build that. And it takes effort and know-how to build that. So kind of taking that sort of thought process, I know I thought I read that one thing that really, I don't know when this happened in your career, but at one point, a VP worked alongside you to do some grunt work, right? Like rolled up his sleeves and cleaned an entire restaurant. I don't know what the circumstances were, or why that was unique, but clearly it was not normal. But in your mind, it wasn't, and it impacted you in the same way. And where this, hey, we work together, we're a team, we're all in this together, we all care about this brand, we care about this mission. It seemed like that. Tell me about that story, and then tell us a little bit about how you're going to cultivate that sort of leadership and that sort of maybe culture, how you're going to try to bring that to Voodoo.
Yeah. So, man, this is an interesting story, and I hope you're okay with me name dropping on this one because yeah. So, when I first started at Quiznos, I was a general manager. My first one I worked at was 120th and Pecos in Broomfield. And so I went through training, worked in this restaurant, was able to kind of get that restaurant turned around. And I met this guy. His name was George Bodecker. If you know George, I think he still lives in Boulder, but he was the executive vice president of operations for Quiznos. He was an area director. I think he owned a lot of restaurants and did a lot of stuff with Quiznos, and it was kind of a big to do. And I was scared. I was scared of him at first. Like the first time I met him, he walked into my restaurant. He had his glasses on. He had this nice suit on, and we were getting our butts kicked. And he stood right behind me, leaning up against the wall with our district manager, Kim. And he had his arms folded as I was just like struggling to make sandwiches. It was basically me and one other guy that was running the shift that day because we had call outs. And so he's leaning up against the wall behind me. I can kind of feel him breathing on my neck. And
no pressure.
I got really mad. I got mad. I slammed my hands down. I turned around and I said, are you going to just stare at us? Or are you going to like wash your hands, glove up and help us out? Because we're getting our butts kicked. And he kind of leaned in and I can see Kim's eyes, like she's like, oh my gosh, what is Erik doing? And he leans in, he looks at me and goes, I thought you'd never ask. And from that point on, I had a good relationship with him. Like he taught me so much. And I remember he moved me to a different restaurant up in Gun Barrel. And it was a distressed restaurant. And it was kind of a same situation. We had to turn it around. And so anyway, the first week I was there, he rolled up in I think it was a yellow beetle bug. And I see him roll up. He's right in the front of the restaurant. He opens up his trunk and he starts pulling out cleaning materials. And he takes the cleaning materials, he dumps them inside the restaurant. And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, great. This is great. Like, he's not going to tell me I need to clean it up. Sure. So he walks in and he goes, hey, Ivey, hey, we're going to shut down early. And I want you to clean the restaurant. We're going to get this thing cleaned up. We're going to organize it. We're going to get it exactly the way you want to. And I said, all right, George, that's cool. And he goes, hey, and I'm going to do it with you. And I think like it was in that moment, it was almost like my heart stopped. I'm like, seriously? You're so like in my head, I'm thinking you're so much more important than I am. Why are you going to roll up your sleeves and clean this restaurant with me? And he said, there's nothing that I'm going to ask you to do that I'm not willing to do myself. And it's important for me to work side by side with you. One, so I can not only set expectations, but two, show you that we're all the same. We're all the same. So we closed down the restaurant. He orders us some pizza. He also brought in some beer. And we were there till probably midnight, just cleaning the restaurant. And from that point forward, man, it was like, I want to be like that. Like, no matter what I do, no matter how far I get within the restaurant business, I want to be able to scrub toilets and floors and work the line and work directly with people because how that made me feel. Now, George, I mean, he went off and, he ended up starting up Crocs. So he did very well for himself. I just kept going into the restaurant business.
Yeah. There's a lot of those little stories, like hearing from people that worked with some of these iconic brands back in the day, so to speak, right? And they ran in or rubbed elbows, but I hear similar stories, right? Because it is a network of small business ownership. It's a network of work hard, take pride, right? But it all really comes down to some idea, some brand, right? Voodoo, brewing is about the brand. It's about the beer. It's about the environment, the people, what you create in the community, right? And so it's important, right? And there's a lot to it just in that type of model. There's many kinds of franchises. So it's interesting for that. It's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. And again, I think that's the key, right? That's why we always say franchising is one of the best opportunities to get into business when you learn those lessons. And it probably really reinforced your first mistake, which was, how did I ever just see people as numbers, right? Which is common. Of course you did. You were taught to do that in school and you want to be successful so you can pay the bills, right? It's not like it's not aligned, but it also is the probably slightly different angle of thinking, I got to put them first. And that's a great example. So anyway, let's jump in a little bit back to Voodoo and talk about the environment or the brand itself. Obviously the beer is amazing. You could maybe share just quickly what makes that unique, right? The flagship sort of product environment that you guys have built. But also, I know you're getting into some menu changes, right? I think there's some innovation there, and that's something you're really good at as well. So tell me what goes into that sort of upgrade of menus or just the constant innovation of it. I'm sure you're always looking at that, but tell me what goes into that and a little bit about what makes you guys unique in the first place.
Yeah, well, let me start with this. So when I met Matteo, the CEO of the Voodoo Brewery Company, in the interview process, that he gave me a quote, and he said, "Craft beer without community is just beer." And it's mind blowing. Something as simple and as easy as that little quote has become the mantra for everything that we are doing on the Voodoo Franchise Group side, like everything. So if you think about that, craft beer without the community, it's just beer, right? I can go down to the grocery store and just get, just any kind of beer. But what we do is we want to look at everything that we are innovating, everything that is driving us to help, one, support our franchise community, right? And the communities that they serve around them. Everything that we do and create is wrapped around that community environment. It is, Voodoo in itself, if you think about the name, there's so many ways that you can spin Voodoo. But the way I look at Voodoo is it's family, it's community. And you'll notice inside all of our pubs, we have doors that have been specially crafted and designs and painted, and there's doors, there's big wooden doors hanging on our ceilings, right? And I heard over we just opened up a pub in Fort Myers, and one of the owners, we were talking about what's the significance of the door, and this franchise owner of ours, he said it's opening opportunity. It's opening up opportunity for our community and for everybody that surrounds us. And I thought, man alive, that's it. That's our purpose. That's why we do what we do. And so when you think about menu innovation, the way I look at menu innovation, and look, I'm not a chef. I love food. It's why I'm in the business that I'm in. But I build teams, or I create teams that can help develop, things like our culinary program. And I want the culinary program to connect with community. So you'll see on our menus that Voodoo Franchise Group has a set menu that is created by our Chef Nate, out of our North Shore restaurant or pub out of Pittsburgh. And so he's designing something that is unique, that speaks to this community family environment for Voodoo. We also, the owners for all of our pubs, we want them to have some local flair on their menu too. So we give every pub owner an opportunity to kind of create another percentage of that menu is their creation. It's something that is local. So we want to connect our communities with what we do, and we do that through our food. And so this menu innovation, this new design and new ideation is really coming from an aspect of how do we connect community with Voodoo and pull it together in each community that we're in.
Yeah, very cool opportunity to do that. I do hear that sometimes from certain restaurant concepts where they do want to really connect the menu to the community, give that a little bit of thought. Not often. It's not the real driver. I immediately thought when you said Pittsburgh, I immediately thought of because I was still I'm a Steelers fan, right? And Ben Roethlisberger was obviously a quarterback for a long time. And of course, a lot of local places had a burger called the Roethlisberger, right? So it's kind of like building a product that would just connect with the community. And that instantly made me think of that. And imagine what that does for the community, right? When you're all fired up about your team and you got a burger named after the quarterback. And I'm not saying that's what you guys have, but maybe that's an idea. But the point is that makes sense. And so, and I know from a marketing standpoint, these concepts are much about regardless of whether you have that simple connection and that quote that you shared and the mantra, which by the way, I think is a brilliant business concept for a culture. If you can keep things very simple, everybody's always looking through that filter of why are we doing this again? It should be able to go through that filter, right? And I think that's an amazing thing to be able to do for a culture, first of all, but also in that, that simplicity, something else there too. And that also connects to marketing. A lot of the marketing that we do in franchising, especially in the restaurant world, would have to do with community, would have to do with word of mouth, reviews, right? People talking to other people. So that's one aspect. So maybe talk to that, like what you see. And obviously I could see there's a lot of people to be very passionate, right, about it. but also it's the marketing side of connecting with the community truly, like other business owners, other organizations, really trying to say, hey, who's around us here? I know ours here in Colorado Springs is on Garden of the Gods, right? So very interesting geological place to be. And so, but I know that there's businesses around it, right? There's a whole community there. How does that work for you guys? How does that help you guys get a franchisee launched and really moving in the right direction?
Well, I think one thing that we need to note here is, like, there are companies out there that talk about community involvement. They talk about engaging in their people. They talk about their mission and their values, right? It's things that you see posted on a wall, right? Um, I think, and this comes back to some of the companies I've worked with where, you see it on the wall and it doesn't really resonate out in the communities, right? It's a different story, right? We don't do that. Like, we really, like, the number one thing that we focus on is our involvement in our communities. I talked about it earlier. Like, it's all about people, and not just people that you work with, but people that you surround yourselves with. And so, yeah, we have fantastic beer. Like, and our food is absolutely amazing. And, we got a really cool vibe when you come into any of the Voodoo pubs, right? But that's important, but it's not as important as the connection, excuse me, that we make, excuse me, in our communities. And so we really stress, even through our marketing efforts, we stress the importance of getting involved, whether it's with your chamber of commerce or if there's nonprofit organizations around the communities, or, hey, maybe there's another brewery or a brew pub down the street that is just opening. Go get involved with them, like, be a part of their experience. Get involved with the schools and, the city officials and the teachers. And I mean, the list can go on and on and on and on, but we find, not just with our business, but even other companies too, that when you really connect with your community, the community is going to connect back with you, and you build a relationship. It's almost like a marriage, right? You don't start a marriage by meeting on day one and by day two you're married. Maybe you do, and
Yeah, I don't think
right?
not a lot of evidence to say that's a good decision.
But you start off by meeting somebody and you get to know them and you build a relationship. And sometimes that turns into a really great friendship. Other times it turns into a marriage. And sometimes it just doesn't turn into anything. Well, with us, it's the same approach, right? We build a relationship with our community, and that creates the friendship and that relationship. And the marriage piece of this is that connection that we make with them that not only brings them into our pubs, but brings us to them as well. And so, we can call this marketing. I just call it the basics of being great at what we do in the business that we're in. Like, it really, I mean, yes, there's a business element to this and a financial side to this that, is, yeah, it's exciting, but it's not the most important thing. Connection with our community will drive success in the communities first, and then secondary in our own business.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do it, and I hear it all the time, I mean, if you're just doing what you know to be doing, which is creating great environment, great food, great beer, right, where people enjoy themselves, then the rest does take care of itself. And for certain people, certain personalities, marketing would just be socializing, So it's an interesting idea, but that's very important. It also shows the resiliency and doability of the model. Like, if you're that type of person thinking, could I run this kind of a business? This is what it's about. If that's important to you, what we described, then that's a perfect fit, and it gives you that opportunity to grow your business that way. Which, to me, like you said, is less clinical. Like, we've got to run a marketing campaign, and we're doing our content calendar and we need this many clicks and this many leads, and it's more like just get up every day, go do the thing, serve the community, and it evolves, right? So
yeah.
So very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy you mentioned that. Like, yeah, marketing calendars and planning and strategizing and, all the fancy words that come along with the business, mentality, right? At the end of the day, wake up and do something special for somebody else. And if you can wake up every single day and think about what you could do to make somebody better, make somebody feel important, or give back in some way, then you'll go to bed at night not only feeling good about what was accomplished, but more importantly, how that other person felt. And that, like, to me, that's the essence of creating this community involvement, that relationship that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, that is it. And keeping it simple the way you just said earlier is why you thought of what you just said. I mean, that simplicity really, let me think of it. Let me think of what that really would mean. It does mean you feel connected. And you can't make people feel connected without what you just shared. So thank you for sharing it. And I think it's a very important idea. But it's that simple, right? You keep it simple. Like, how do we create community? Well, let's be nice to someone today. Everybody on the team thinking that way on a regular basis could only make me feel good going in. And I am going to go visit here soon, just for that reason. I really do want to go have dinner now. Anyway, so thank you. All right, so let me just talk about operations just for a minute, because I'm a tech guy and I do like to get into these things, and I know that's, we're getting out there and being people, right? But to do it well and to serve our community, we have tech, right? We have these things we use and tools we use. Tell me a little bit as an operations guy, and I know you're new to the brand, so you're sort of surveying and probably starting to plan and put some things into place. But what are some important things you look for? Some key things that would say, yeah, we want to build community here. And, here's one process or workflow or technology that just really helps with that. Is there something that you already observe or would want to share and that's you think's important?
Yeah. The first thing I think about when I'm thinking about that kind of stuff is I ask myself two different questions. One is, how do we make this easier to be an owner or an operator, right? And how do we make it easier to be a guest or a customer, right? If what we create or the technology that we bring on can answer those two questions, how do we make it easier to be an operator? How do we make it easier to be a customer? And those tools or those systems or those processes fit into that model of making it easier, then it's a winning situation. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity to like finding this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, my job, my role in this is to make it easier for an owner to be an owner. Because if I can get them to spend less time worrying about the data end of this or the functionality of tools and systems and process or the complexity of it, right? And more time in their community or focused on their four-wall marketing, right? Or just the operations within the business, then we're winning on that front operationally. But when it comes down to tools, like things that we're bringing on, like PlayerLink, WiseTel is a system that we just contracted with, and that's it's a platform for training and communication, and a storage system for all the operational tools, and it also has this like really cool like ability for community involvement, internal community where you can kind of challenge people or you can connect with them or you can share different ideas. So we're partnering with them to help us to create a solid training model for our franchise owners. And honestly, training in essence is one of the most important things that we can do to help support our franchise system, is giving them the tools, the resources, and the systems to be able to not only train themselves, but their people effectively to operate these pubs. We're bringing on other technology systems that will help us with accounting. We're bringing on a new back of house system that will allow for inventory management controls. We've partnered with a company called BarTrack, which is an inventory management system for beer. Those are the types of systems or the technology that we're bringing on that's going to make our franchise owners' lives so much easier and better, because it's going to help them. It's basically going to do the work for them and provide the data that they need to be able to support growth in their operations.
Yeah, you can't. It's funny. Like, you do have to get clinical at some point and get into the geeky stuff. But what you said was brilliant. It is what any tech leader should be thinking. I'm not saying that's your role completely, but it's it's what's problem is it solving, and is it doing that, like, or is it, again, back to that one simple idea, does it increase community, does it make it easier for the person to be a customer, does it make it easier for me to be the owner, and that increases the engagement, the community part, right? Like if you know me better, like, because like I get a text and there's something cool in it, something that says, hey, yeah, I really do like that menu item, and now you're going to give me something that to me comes with data, right? You would know, Rob comes in a lot and orders the same thing. That's a technical thing, but you're increasing community because you're letting people know we care enough about you, how to know what you care about on our menu. And that's just a subtle way of saying we care about you. And that, so again, add that up times 100 things that technology can create. And if you don't go at it from the how does it help make it easier for the customer, or how does it make it easier for the owner, then really you might totally go off course and put way too much resource into things that, as you said in your earlier, wasn't the same exact thing, but you were focused on maybe the KPIs and the details and not the relationships in the community. I think you start with that and then let the technology serve that mission. So that's cool that you said that. Means a lot. I know you're on the right track. I did notice some of the names, though. The names that you mentioned are definitely major players, and cool.
Well, the other thing too with this too is it's not just about these this the technology that we bring in, but like when we're making changes or we're trying to create ideas on how to improve um, the operations of the business, it's also really important that we connect with our franchise owners and get their opinions and their ideas, because they know. I mean, if you want to know the reality or the truth, go talk to the people that are in the field that are actually doing it. And so we've been doing just that. We're getting a lot of really, really good ideas from them. That's helping us to build the model or improve the model for them to be able to operate great operating pubs.
And I bring it up almost not every episode, but almost every episode, where I just say that power, what you just said, is something that it always, no one over promotes it, right? But the idea of being in a business model where you can reach out to X number of other people that are doing exactly what you're doing, and all of you are experiencing it in similar but different ways and collaborating. And I can't think of anything else in the world that's like that, where you were a local business owner, you had your restaurant. How many other restaurants that were doing what you were doing could you have asked questions to, or get input from, or get other ideas? And so that's, again, another example of, like, that's no small thing to be able to do that. You might think, well, you should just already have it done, it's already ready to go. No, it's always evolving, and times are going to change in the future too. And so you'll have your network to feed into that. That's amazing. To be able to build a business around that much input is really important point to make. So thinking of that, though, how, and just kind of wanted to ask you sort of your future vision. Is there, and maybe this is sort of some blocking and tackling that maybe that's the answer, or maybe there's some really innovative things you're thinking about in the future. But share any thoughts on the future, and yeah, how do you connect innovation with the network? Like, because I would think you're going to want to continue to have that dialogue and evolve, right? So, like, but what do you see coming down the pike, if anything, visionary wise? Like, do you see anything from your experience? And then as you do test things and try to change, how does that work with your network?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now, the most important thing that we can do is, while we're thinking about the future, and we've got a lot of owners that are in the pipeline that are in the development phase, and I mean, we're stacked. We're stacked pretty strong, which is great from where the company is going to be. Right now, the most important thing that we can do is make sure that we have the systems, the tools, and the processes to be able to support our owners, both owners that already have pubs that are in operations, and the pub owners that are in the development process. So, from a futuristic standpoint, we are going to continue to evolve what we already have and continue to fine tune our platform as we continue to grow, whether that be on the technology side and what we're doing on that front, or it's the internal, how do we operate these things most effectively. I think once we have a system that I feel is pretty strong, then from that point, it's just a matter of fine tuning. I always believe also in like we got to keep up with the times, keep up with the technology. But I also think that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like if we have something that's working and it's not broken, then we don't need to try to fix it. I see this with other companies that I've worked with. It's we try to make changes just because we want to make changes, right? You don't really have to make changes. I think what we should be focusing on is rather than focusing on like those internal processes and like refining them, is what we always need to be thinking about is how can we continue to support the franchise owners in their journey with us? What do we need to do from an innovative standpoint, from a culinary standpoint, so we can continue to, I guess, not recreate, but innovate and introduce new menu items? How can we continue to evolve inside the communities and drive awareness to the brand, and just really support them down the road?
Yeah, I mean, that always comes back to that, right? But like you said, how do you filter that? Make sure that you're really at the end result. Is this project? Is this initiative? Is this what we're working on? Is it helping increase engagement or community for that franchisee in his market? That relates to his numbers, obviously. If things are going well, then obviously community is going well too. But okay, so I'm with you on that. I think being reactive and proactive, there's a balance, right? And not just overreacting, but listening. But you know what I mean? It's a balance. Like you do want to listen, but sometimes you don't need to react yet. Everything's actually working pretty good. As I said, it does come down to the basics of human interaction and making people feel good about what they do and or being in your establishment, right? Especially what you guys do. It's like people want to go there if they're going to spend a couple hours a week, few hours, whatever it looks like. You want to create that environment, and that takes some thought, right? It takes some direction from guys like you to create that. So that's cool. So tell me a little bit, like as we wrap things up, I appreciate your time, and I could probably sit here for another hour just kind of shooting the breeze with you. But anyway, so I know we want to kind of zero things in here. I just always like to make sure we have an opportunity for you to talk to anyone that might be thinking about this as an opportunity for them, whether it's a restaurant or even just a franchise. We sometimes broaden it and say, if it's someone thinking about starting a franchise. But sometimes when I look at like something like a Voodoo Brewing, I might think, man, that's just a little bit like I could maybe do like one of those franchises, but I don't think I could do one of them franchises, right? So maybe just speak to who are we looking for? Who does look like a good candidate for that kind of a business model, right? For yours or something in the rest. What advice would you give them? Maybe
Oh
wrap up with
man,
that, and
yeah.
and then also share how we can get a hold of you guys if they are interested.
Yeah. Wow. That's a that's a great question to ask me to speak with. I think at the end of the day, one, you need to be very passionate about what you're about to get yourself into. Like this is not it. Like especially in the restaurant industry, I can't speak of about other types of franchises, but more specifically in the restaurant business, like it's a
Mhm.
tough business. It really is. Like, I wouldn't go into this with the mindset that you're not going to work in a kitchen, or you're not going to work behind a bar, or you're not going to be serving. Like you really need to go into the mindset of I want to be a part of this. I want to learn. I want to like integrate myself in with my team and really, really connect with that team in that way, more so than just, being the owner of the business. I find that owners that come into the system that work their restaurants, are truly engaged with their team, um, are pretty darn successful with this. Like they get it, they understand it. It doesn't mean that those that are doing this as an investment are not as successful. You can always hire a great chef or general manager or a partner that can go in and operate it. But I find that the closer you are with your investment, the more successful you are. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is go into this with a mindset of learning and trusting the systems and the tools and the processes that companies build to be able to operate. I mean, that's why you get into a franchise situation, is because the model's already there. The work's already been done. And, for owners, go in it with the mindset of trust the system, operate your place with the mindset of, I'm going to follow exactly what the franchise system is telling me I need to model. I think that's the other thing. And look, it can be very scary to get into a situation where you now own it. I mean, you're investing lots of money into a new business, and you get the butterflies and this like excitement in the beginning, and then you start writing checks, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm writing checks now, and then you've got opening week, and you're really nervous because you're training, and then you've got the grand opening day, and like one little thing in your business can kind of go wrong, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And but just know that like you're going to do just fine. It's going to be okay. You just got to breathe and relax, trust the support for with the company that you're going with, and just know that you're going to be taken care of, and you're going to do really well. Have fun is my last one. Like, man, just have fun. I mean, you got into a franchise situation or just owning your own business for a reason. Like, you wanted to get away maybe from your day job or this corporate world that you've been working in for your entire life. So have fun and enjoy it, because man, like, it's a really fun ride. There are bumps, it's roller coasters every now and then, but at the end of the day, like, if you have fun and you enjoy it, then you're going to do very well.
Yeah. Well, I first thought when you were given part of that answer, I immediately thought of your experience, and I've heard it over and over again and over and over again with, if I'm not willing to do it, then I'm not going to ask you to do it. Like, if I'm going to ask you to do things, I want to experience what that's like. I want to be closer to it. I think that there's a realistic, I mean, there's only so much some guys can do, but there's always that attitude though. And like even the president of the United States can be that kind of president, right? Where I want to get down there and shake hands and be with the farmers and I mean, you get that. I want to get closer to the community mindset because it's important to experience that. And I think that's what you were saying, is you got to be willing to do that. And then also, have fun. And it kind of, you ended with having fun. And you know what? Franchising, here's the good news. I don't know how many I think there's millions of franchise businesses, franchised locations, businesses. So it works, right? Not to say that challenges don't arise, but that's the greatness about being in a network and being part of a brand. Is we're all gonna we're gonna see this through regardless. It's gonna happen. There may be some bumps, but we'll be okay because we've been through them before. But that's part of like the greatness of being around people that have done it before, right? It's like, no, I've seen this before. We're okay, right? And even if we haven't seen it before, like COVID, I'm a testament. I sat and interviewed brand after brand and watched them innovate through that in ways that I could tell you would not be possible without a network of great people and a community, right? And that's exactly was not a test any of us wanted to go through, but in the franchise to put the stress test on the model itself and say, will this really hold up? And I think it did. And so to anyone nervous about launching, I would say you're all right. You're probably in good hands. So with guys like Erik. So Erik, where would folks reach out to you, the team, whoever that first touch might be? What's the best way to do that? To learn more about Voodoo Brewing and Voodoo Franchise Group.
Hey, you know what? My phone, my email is always open to anybody. It's Erik with a K, so ERIK at vbcpubs.com, or Erik at voodoobrewery.com. So anybody who's interested in talking or just wants to read it, reach out and, have a chat about, either this or more. I mean, I'm an open book and I'm more than willing to talk to anybody.
Awesome. I'm amazed you guys do that. I appreciate the offer. Anyone that gets that or hears that, I know a lot of people don't take that, people up on that, but you've been doing this a long time. You're a wealth of knowledge. It would be a pleasure. I just had an amazing conversation. I learned a few things. So, yeah, it's take them up on that. But anyway, it was great to have you, Erik. I definitely want to continue to touch base with you guys. Very interesting model. I'm nearby. I'm going to go ahead and hang out a little bit and we'll talk again. But yeah, thank you for being on the show today. Appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.